So how effective are all these sanctions on Russia, and could they backfire on the countries imposing them? Let's talk to Adam Smith, who's a lawyer who served in President Obama's administration as a sanctions advisor. Adam, welcome. Will these new sanctions pack a bigger punch? Are they enough?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I mean, they certainly are a bigger punch than the earlier sanctions from the beginning of the week. The sanctions that were imposed multilaterally over the past 24, 36 hours are very meaningful. The sanctions on the banks are meaningful. The sanctions on export controls, perhaps even more so. I think none of them will impact Russia's calculus in the immediate term, unfortunately. But I do think that in the medium and certainly the long term, it will have material impacts on the Russians' economy, their ability to compete, their ability to innovate, their ability to maintain talent. I think it will have significant impacts for sure.
Many people believe that the only measure that could get President Putin's attention would be to ban Russia from the SWIFT network payment. For those of us who are not familiar with sanctions, just explain more about the SWIFT system, who owns it, who controls it, and why it is not part of this sanctions program.
No, it's a great question. So SWIFT is a Belgian-based cooperative owned by 11,000 financial institutions around the world. It is the principal telecommunications network between banks around the world that manages communication flows for cross-border payments. That's all it is. It's a technological marvel, but in some respects, it is as simple as that. It is an email exchange system. If you were to ban the Russian state, all Russian banks from SWIFT, you would basically ban Russian institutions from being able to use the SWIFT network. The impact of that would be significant, without a doubt, because, again, every bank around the world relies upon SWIFT to do these communications. However, I do doubt whether or not that in itself would change President Putin's calculus, because at the end of the day, SWIFT is just a communications platform. It is not a funding or payments platform. If you are still allowing transactions to pay for aluminum, to pay for gas, to pay for oil, titanium, all the goods that, frankly, the West still needs from Russia, it's not clear to me that banning the SWIFT payment system will actually really hit at President Putin's economy in the same way that banning the actual transactions that underlie the economy, the actual transactional flows, the good flows that would actually impact his GDP would do so.
OK, Europe is, as we know, pretty reliant on Russian oil and gas. Does this mean, given that dependence, that the EU and the international community will never target Putin where it really hurts, in those commodity areas?
Well, I think saying never say never, I think, is probably the right move at this point. I do know there has been a global search for supplies to replace Russian gas, Russian oil, but there, frankly, is a difficulty because of the buildup of reliance the Germans, the French, others, and further east in the EU and the European continent have on Russian supplies. So I do think in the immediate term it will be very challenging to wean the West off of Russian supplies. But I don't see any other way to really hit President Putin sort of in the pocketbook, which is what sanctions are supposed to do, without really hitting the things that he sells, which are principally things that come out of the ground, both on the mineral side and the energy side.
Adam, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. That's Adam Smith.